If she doesn't speak English in the next 30 seconds, I'm calling security." The words sliced through the Grand Hotel lobby like a razor across silk. Heads turned. Murmurs rose. The woman didn't flinch. She stood alone at the reception desk, silent, still, unreadable, her navy wool coat pristine against the polished marble backdrop of the Sterling Grand. Her lips didn't move. Her eyes didn't blink. But her presence disrupted the entire rhythm of the room. The concierge's fingers hovered nervously over the phone. Guests in line were already recording. Behind the counter, a young staffer whispered, "That's the CO from Tokyo, isn't it?" Another muttered, "Watanabe something. Booked the presidential suite. But she won't say a word in any language we speak." Behind her, a frazzled assistant waved a phone screen at her. Translation apps, typed messages, apologies. Still nothing. Two hired translators stood helpless, one of them red-faced, the other visibly sweating. "She's not being aggressive," someone hissed. "Just quiet. But she's disrupting check-in." And that was when the lobby began to turn. Professionalism gave way to irritation. Hospitality curdled into suspicion. And silence, the kind chosen, not forced, became the enemy. From across the lobby, near a gleaming brass luggage cart, a janitor in gray coveralls stopped wiping the table. Darius Cole. Mid-40s. But calloused hands. Name tag faded. Invisible by default. By design. People didn't notice the janitor. But Darius saw everything. And this silence? He recognized it. Because once upon a time, he'd used that same silence to survive. He set down his cloth. And began walking, not because someone told him to, but because no one else dared to. The Sterling Grand was built to impress. White marble floors polished to mirror sheen. Crystal chandeliers taller than most people's living rooms. A scent of jasmine and white tea diffused every 12 minutes on the day. It was the kind of place where people's voices didn't echo. They landed. Like money. Like judgment. And today, judgment was everywhere. A woman stood motionless at the check-in desk, her back straight, hands folded calmly in front of her. Her presence was quiet, but unshakable. Her navy coat spoke of Tokyo winters. Her eyes? Chirped. Observing. Unreadable. But her silence unnerved everyone. Behind her, the assistant kept swiping his phone, showing messages, pointing to words, gestures, apps. Nothing worked. He looked ready to cry. "Ma'am," the concierge repeated again, tighter this time. "We cannot help you if you won't answer." She didn't budge. Behind the desk, murmurs intensified. "She doesn't respond to English, French, or Mandarin," someone muttered. "She's booked in the presidential suite, but this is insane." Two translators, both from an agency the hotel kept on call, stood off to the side, visibly helpless. "She's not being aggressive," whispered one front desk agent. "She just won't speak." "Should we call security?" someone said again, low. Veronica Kent had heard enough. She came down the grand staircase like she owned it. In many ways, she did. General manager of the Sterling Grand for 8 years. Crimson lipstick. 5-inch heels. Her walk wasn't a walk, it was a verdict. She reached the desk, smiled like a politician, and announced, "Good morning. I'm Veronica Kent, General Manager. How may we assist you today?" No answer. "Miss," she tried again, sharper. Still silence. Veronica turned toward the staff, jaw twitching behind the smile. "She's refusing to speak." "She's not refusing," the assistant said. "She's selective. She prefers to communicate in Japanese for formal matters." Veronica's laugh was clipped. "We're not in Tokyo. If she wants towels or champagne, she can point like everyone else. But she's blocking the check-in process." Then, softly but firmly, she said, "This is America, ma'am. If you want service here, you need to speak English." The room stilled. The weight of those words dropped like lead. That was when Darius Cole stepped forward. "Mr. Cole," Veronica snapped, "this doesn't concern maintenance." "I know," he said quietly. He turned to the woman. "But not dramatically. Just enough." And in a voice so soft, it made people lean forward without meaning to, he said, Silence. She blinked once, then spoke, in fluid, elegant Japanese. The assistant gasped. He's speaking perfectly, he whispered. With Kyoto intonation. Veronica's mouth parted slightly. How do you even know Japanese? Darius didn't answer. He turned slightly and gestured toward the lounge. Watanabe-sama, he said. We can sit there. No pressure. No misunderstanding. She inclined her head, then followed him, just like that, through the parted sea of guests and staff, toward the quiet, and in the silence they left behind, one question thundered louder than all the noise before it. Who is this janitor? And what else has this hotel chosen not to see? Darius didn't walk quickly. He moved like he'd been here before. Like he knew exactly how loud polished shoes could echo on marble when no one expected them to be heard. The weight of every stare followed him, not just from the guests, but from the staff too. Veronica Kent was still frozen behind the counter, lips parted, eyes narrowed. The translators looked embarrassed. The assistant clutched his phone like it was the last life raft on a sinking ship. And Yukiko Watanabe, the silent woman who had just turned the entire lobby into a question mark, followed the janitor like she was walking beside a diplomat. Not a word passed between them until they stepped into the lounge. It was quiet there, dimmer, designed for rich people to sip expensive drinks while pretending not to watch each other. Velvet furniture, dark wood accents, the faint scent of bergamot. Darius gestured toward a corner seat beneath a paper screen lamp. Yukiko inclined her head and sat with the kind of grace that didn't ask for attention. It simply assumed it was owed. He walked to the sideboard and picked up the tray, poured water into a small electric kettle with practiced ease, placed 2 cups down, wiped the saucers with a cloth from his cart. Still silent. He didn't rush. He didn't explain. Because real respect doesn't rush the ritual. Only when the water boiled and the green tea had steeped just long enough, did he return with the tray and set it gently between them. She watched him. Not suspiciously. Like she recognized something. He poured without clinking porcelain. Without letting steam escape too fast. His fingers barely trembled. Yukiko's gaze softened slightly. She asked gently. He replied. Her eyebrows rose just slightly. He nodded. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just still. Then, in quiet, careful English, she said, You speak correctly. I used to teach silence, Darius said. Now I mostly mop around it. That earned a faint smile. Almost imperceptible. She lifted her cup with both hands. Sipped once. Set it down. Then finally asked, Why did you step forward? He looked at her evenly. Because I've seen what happens when people think silence means surrender. She blinked. Slowly. You did not fear that woman? He smiled faintly. No. I used to work with worse. Academia has sharper claws than high heels. Yukiko tilted her head. You taught at university? Darius nodded. Cultural linguistics. Specialized in nonverbal negotiation. Mostly East Asian silence dynamics. Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. You left, she asked. He hesitated. Then said quietly, My wife passed. I had a daughter. No family here. I needed a job where no one asked about my past. Or my future. She didn't apologize. Didn't offer sympathy. She simply said, That is what silence is, then. A shield. He nodded. Sometimes. Sometimes it's the only thing people won't argue with. She sipped again. In Japan, silence is a strategy. In America, Darius said, they treat it like a malfunction. They sat quietly. Outside the lounge, the hotel buzzed again. Phones ringing. Guests murmuring. But in here, the stillness settled like weightless snow. Yukiko finally said, The woman, Veronica. She was not threatened by me. She was threatened by not being able to control me. She expected a performance, Darius said. You didn't give her one. Nor did you. He shrugged. I offered tea. That's not rebellion. It is, she said, when no one expects you to be fluent. A long pause. Then she asked, almost hesitant, How did you know to bow? Darius leaned back. My wife was Japanese American. I learned more about nuance from her grandmother than from any textbook. She taught you? She taught me how to see silence for what it is, not absence, but intent. Yukiko looked at him carefully. You are not what you seem. He raised an eyebrow. Neither are you. Another smile. This one lingered. She looked down at the tea. They wanted to call security on me. He didn't react. They feared I might, what? Disrupt their brand with a quiet woman in a tailored coat. No, Darius said. They feared what you represented, that someone they couldn't label might still outrank them. She studied him, then quietly said, You didn't speak for me. You spoke with me. That's the difference, Darius replied. And it changes everything. At that moment, the assistant appeared near the lounge doorway, holding a tablet nervously. They're asking for a statement, he whispered. The hotel. Media is starting to pick it up. Yukiko waved him off with 2 fingers. Darius stood, taking the tray. Do you want to return to the lobby? She shook her head. No. I think I've found the real entrance. He looked at her. And for the first time in years, someone saw the janitor not as a shadow, but as a peer. As he turned to go, she said softly in Japanese. He nodded. Silence can be the sharpest voice. Darius didn't go back to mopping. Not yet. He rolled the cart to the far wall of the lounge, parked it quietly, and returned to his seat across from Yukiko Watanabe. The tea between them was still warm. The silence even warmer. No one had said they were continuing the conversation. But neither of them left. She refilled his cup before he could stop her. 2 hands. No sound. Precision and care woven into muscle memory. You've done this before, she said in Japanese. Darius offered a nod. Only with people who understand what it means. She tilted her head. In Japan, tea is a language. In America, he replied, it's usually poured in paper cups, then thrown away. That made her smile. Real this time. Small but certain. He sipped slowly. Let the heat settle in his throat. You taught silence, she said. That's not a common field. It's not respected here, Darius answered. Too quiet to monetize. And yet you're fluent. I had to be. My daughter went mute after the accident. For 2 years, all I had was silence. Her face softened. What happened? She asked gently. A drunk driver, he said. She was in the back seat. My wife, he paused, exhaled through his nose. My wife didn't make it. Yukiko didn't speak. Didn't shift. Just listened. My daughter's name is Autumn, he continued. After the accident, I left the university. Couldn't teach while she stared through me every night. Took whatever work kept food on the table. This job? It keeps the lights on. That's enough. It's not, she said softly. But I understand why you believe that. He looked up at her. And for the first time, there was no weight in her eyes, only recognition. I came to America for business, she continued. But also for clarity. Clarity? He asked. She nodded. My board wants to expand our operations here. But I wanted to see who I was dealing with. Not by invitation dinners or glossy brochures. I wanted to watch the quiet moments. The real faces. Darius leaned back. You chose the right hotel for cracks. Clearly. A beat passed. She reached into her purse and retrieved a small leather-bound notebook. Opened it. Slid a piece of paper across the table. A name. An address. A phone number. What's this? He asked. My personal assistant in Tokyo, she said. And my direct line. Darius stared at it. I don't understand. I want to offer you a position. His eyebrows shot up. As what? He said slowly. A cultural liaison, she said. Someone who understands language. Not just words, intention, ritual, context, silence. You. He didn't speak for a moment. Then, you want to hire a janitor to teach executives how to listen? I want to hire a man who bowed before he spoke, she said. The rest of the world is just catching up. He let out a slow breath. I appreciate that, he said. But I have a daughter. She's still recovering. I'm not sure I can pick up in. Then we bring the work here, she said simply. Or we wait. I'm not offering a deadline. I'm offering dignity. That stopped him. He looked at her for a long time. Finally, he said, "Why me?" She answered without hesitation. "Because you didn't try to fix me. You just saw me." Darius glanced down at the tea again. His fingers brushed the edge of the saucer. "I haven't been seen in a long time," he said. "I have," she replied. "Far too often. And usually through the wrong lens." They both sat back. The silence returned, but it no longer hovered like a ghost. It wrapped around them like an old coat. Darius finally chuckled. "The staff outside is probably freaking out right now." "They should be." "You really came here to observe people?" Yukiko nodded. "I've been in boardrooms where men speak 10 minutes straight without saying anything. I wanted to see who could communicate with one sentence. Or none at all." "And you think that's me?" "I know it is." He ran a hand over his jaw. "This is a lot." "It is. I'm just a janitor." She leaned forward. "Then maybe the world needs more janitors." The weight of those words landed. He didn't deflect. Didn't joke. Instead, he asked, "And what do I tell my daughter?" Yukiko smiled. "Tell her the truth," she said. "That you translated a moment the world almost missed." He sat quietly for a moment, then picked up the paper she'd slid to him and folded it neatly into his pocket. "I'll think about it," he said. "I hope you do." Outside the lounge, the low hum of whispers began to swell again. Phones vibrated. Guests pretended not to peek toward the frosted glass doors. But inside, at a small corner table between a janitor and a CEO, there was peace. And in that peace, something rare happened. Two people from opposite worlds found a language no one else in the room could speak, but everyone else felt. When Darius stepped back into the main lobby, it felt like walking onto a stage he didn't ask to be on. The crowd didn't part this time. They stared. Some whispered. Some quickly looked away when he met their eyes. A few offered awkward smiles, the kind that weren't about kindness, just confusion. The lobby hadn't moved on. It had paused, waiting to see if what they saw earlier had really happened. He ignored them. At least he tried to. He returned to his cart, checked the spray bottle, wiped his hands with the towel he always tucked in his waistband. Routine had a way of protecting him. The rhythm of maintenance work gave him something no one else did. Silence with purpose. But something was different now. He couldn't hear the soft jazz anymore, though he knew it was still playing from the speakers. He couldn't smell the jasmine diffusers. All he could feel was the weight of the moment pressing against his back, like unfinished business. Across the lobby, Veronica Kent stood near the elevator bank, arms crossed, lips pursed. She wasn't just irritated, she was calculating. Behind her, two assistant managers huddled, whispering while checking a tablet. "Excuse me." Darius turned. It was the assistant from before, the young Japanese man who'd been panicking beside Yukiko Watanabe just 30 minutes ago. He bowed slightly. Not formal. Not stiff. Just human. "She wishes to speak with you again," he said in accented English. "Privately. Later today if possible." Darius hesitated. "I already told her." "It's not business," the assistant interrupted quietly. "It's gratitude. She just didn't want to leave it unsaid." Darius nodded. "I'll be here till 6. She knows." The assistant bowed again and left, disappearing through the private elevator at the far wall. Darius turned back toward his cart and didn't notice Veronica approaching until her perfume arrived first. "Mr. Cole," she said crisply, voice like polished metal. He didn't turn around. "Yes, Miss Kent. I assume you understand that what just happened was unorthodox." He kept wiping the brass handle of the cart, so was almost calling security on a guest. She paused. He could feel her jaw clench behind him. "I'm not here to argue," she said flatly, "but we've already received 2 calls from corporate asking for a statement." "Let them know I offered tea," Darius replied. "Not a press conference." She stepped closer. "You put this hotel on the internet." "No," he said finally turning to face her. "Someone with a phone did." I was just doing what you couldn't. Listen. Her eyes narrowed. Are you trying to make a point? I'm trying to mop the floor. A long silence passed between them. Finally, she said, You're not paid to represent this hotel. He met her eyes. Solid. No, he said. But today I did. She didn't respond. Just stood there a moment longer, then walked away, heels clicking like gavel strikes across the marble. Back in the break room, Darius washed his hands slowly at the sink. The water ran hot, but it didn't chase away the tension in his fingers. He dried them on a paper towel, then opened his locker. Inside, taped to the back wall, was a drawing. Faded crayon lines. A crooked house. A little girl with puffy hair. Stick figure him. And a big red heart in the sky. Me, Dad, and Mommy. Autumn's handwriting. From a lifetime ago. He sat on the bench and stared at it. Did she still believe he belonged in that picture? He had spent so long trying to make peace with becoming invisible, to protect her, to survive. And now, one conversation with a stranger had torn that protective veil in half. Because someone saw him. Really saw him. And it terrified him. When his shift ended, Darius walked out the side entrance instead of the main lobby. He didn't want more eyes on him. Not today. But before he could reach the street, a voice called out behind him. Mr. Cole? Turned. Yukiko Watanabe stood beneath the archway of the East Wing garden. She wasn't alone. A woman in a gray suit stood beside her, silent, holding an umbrella. But Yukiko wasn't dressed like so anymore. She wore a simple linen coat. Low heels. Her hair tied back. Just a woman now. Not an empire. I thought you had meetings, he said. I postponed them. Important ones? They can wait. He hesitated. Why? She looked at him carefully. Because I know what it feels like to walk away from a conversation and wish you'd said more. He nodded. I've done that. A lot. Me too. They stood in silence. Wind rustled the leaves nearby. She gestured to the bench in the garden. May we sit? He followed her. When they settled, she said, I didn't come to America to make deals. I came to see if anyone still believed dignity could exist without a press release. Darius looked at her sideways. You think that's what I gave you? Dignity? She shook her head. No. You reminded me I never lost it. He didn't speak for a while. Then he said, My daughter, she hasn't spoken a full sentence since the crash. Yukiko didn't react with pity. Only presence. She paints, Darius continued. Drawings, colors, movement. That's her voice now. She shows me what she feels, and I have to interpret it like a silent language. Yukiko nodded slowly. Then you and I are not so different. He looked up. My father, she said, was a temple craftsman. A silent man. When he died, I thought the silence would crush me. But now, I think it gave me a new voice. He swallowed hard. Some days I wonder, he said quietly, if Autumn will ever get hers back. She will, Yukiko replied. Because she has you. They both sat there, two strangers held together not by pasts or professions, but by silence that finally meant something. And as the wind picked up again, Darius closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a janitor. He felt like a man who mattered. In the boardroom on the 12th floor of the Sterling Grand, the air was 10 degrees colder than anywhere else in the building. Veronica Kent stood at the head of the conference table, her tablet glowing with headlines she wished didn't exist. Janitor speaks Japanese to billionaire seal, management freezes. Hotel staff nearly called security on woman worth more than the lobby itself. The man who bowed and shamed a 5-star institution. She tapped the screen hard, and the headlines vanished. Not the damage. This is spiraling, she said, her voice clipped and sharp. We need control. Now. Around the table sat the hotel's senior staff, heads of marketing, guest relations, PR, legal, HR. Each one trying not to meet her eyes. Each one trying not to sweat. Veronica, the PR director, a man named Jasper Fielding, finally spoke. We didn't authorize the video. A guest took it. It's organic. It's viral, Veronica corrected. There's a difference. It's not negative, though, Jasper added quickly. The public sentiment is overwhelmingly positive. They're praising the hotel for having culturally aware staff. Staff who are janitors, she snapped. The room froze. You think this is good press? She continued. It's a humiliation. No one's talking about our penthouse views or Michelin-starred kitchen. They're talking about a mop and a tea tray. Veronica, said Angela from HR, cautiously. He de-escalated a potential international incident with grace and fluency. We should be proud. We should be prepared, Veronica cut in. Do you realize how this looks? That man made fools out of our certified translators. Out of us. He stepped out of his lane. And walked into a crisis, Jasper replied, more firmly. And handled it better than anyone in this room. That earned a few murmurs of reluctant agreement. Veronica's jaw twitched. So what do you suggest? We promote him? Give him a medal? I suggest, Jasper said, we don't issue any punitive action. Let this run its course. Acknowledge the moment. Maybe highlight Darius in a subtle campaign. Cultural diversity angle. Human connection. Guests love that. Veronica crossed her arms. Guests also love consistency. What happens when someone expects every janitor to recite poetry in Mandarin next week? It's one man, Angela said, doing the right thing. We should be grateful. No, Veronica said coldly. We should be cautious. She turned to the legal advisor. Are we exposed? He shook his head. Not legally. He followed policy. Didn't violate any code of conduct. In fact, we're getting emails praising him. A few clients have even asked if he's part of a concierge service. That made her lip curl. He's not trained for that, she said. He's maintenance. Maintenance who speaks better Japanese than our translators, Jasper muttered. She ignored him. Send a formal notice, she said. Reinforce role boundaries. No more interactions with high-profile guests unless directly supervised. Angela flinched. You want to reprimand him? I want to remind everyone who represents this hotel. The room went quiet again. Only Jasper held her gaze. You're trying to bury a moment the world is celebrating. I'm trying to protect a brand. And what if the brand wants humanity now? Veronica didn't answer. She didn't have to. The meeting adjourned 10 minutes later with no resolution, just the dull throb of tension still clinging to the glass walls. Downstairs, Darius returned from the garden and re-entered the break room to find a sealed envelope taped to his locker. His name. Printed. No handwriting. He opened it. Memorandum. Guest interaction boundary reminder. Due to recent incidents involving unsupervised staff interaction with VIP guests, we are issuing this reminder that all guest-facing communications must remain within role expectations. Any deviation may be subject to review. His stomach tightened. No signature. Just the sterile echo of authority. He folded it once. Then again. Then shoved it in the trash. Marcus, the night shift concierge, walked in just as Darius was washing his hands. You got it too, huh? Marcus said. You mean the paper that reminds me I'm disposable? Marcus chuckled darkly. That one. Darius didn't speak. Marcus leaned against the counter. You know they're scared, right? Not because you did something wrong, but because you reminded them what right actually looks like. That's not my job. No, Marcus said, but it was your moment. Darius dried his hands slowly. They want me quiet again. They can want all they like, Marcus said, but you can't unsee what you saw, or what she saw in you. Darius met his eyes. Have you ever been punished for doing the right thing? He asked. All the time, Marcus replied without missing a beat. But I've never regretted it. Darius nodded once. Then left the room without saying another word. That evening, back at his small apartment, Autumn sat at the kitchen table, drawing in colored pencil. Her favorite purple hoodie hung loosely off one shoulder. Her hair was pulled into two poofy pigtails, and her eyes were fixed in concentration. Darius sat across from her, sipping tea. He didn't tell her about the memo. Didn't tell her about the boardroom, or the glares, or the envelope with no name. Instead, he watched her draw. "What are you making?" he asked. She held up the page. It was a picture of him, bent slightly forward, holding a cup of tea in front of a woman in a navy blue coat. In the background, the hotel lobby. Everyone else was gray. But Darius was drawn in color. Autumn smiled and pointed. "That's you." He swallowed. "Yeah. You looked like you were telling her she mattered." He blinked and felt something tighten in his chest. "I didn't say anything special," he said. "You didn't have to," she whispered. Autumn liked the kitchen best at night. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, the small clink of her pencils in the mason jar, the smell of lemon from the floor cleaner her dad always used. It was where things felt safe. Darius sat across from her at their modest table, elbows on the wood, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of tea. He looked tired. Not from scrubbing floors, but from something deeper. Something that sat behind his eyes and didn't let go. Autumn put her sketchpad down and studied him. "You didn't tell me what happened today," she said softly. Darius didn't look up right away. He stared into the steam rising from his cup like it had answers. "I met someone," he said finally. "Someone important. But not loud." "Important how?" He smiled a little. "She reminded me of you." Autumn blinked. "Was she quiet?" "She was silent," he said. "And people hated her for it." "Why?" "Because they couldn't control her," Darius answered. "And she wouldn't speak their language." Autumn leaned forward, eyes wide. "But you spoke it?" "I did." She nodded slowly, then asked, "Was she sad?" He hesitated. "No. But I think she was tired. Tired of pretending she was less than she is just to be understood." Autumn rested her chin on her arms. "You always say silence isn't bad." "It's not," he said. "But the world's not always kind to people who use it." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "You were scared today." He looked at her, surprised. She didn't flinch. "You came home quiet." "That's how I know." Darius set the mug down gently. "Yeah," he admitted. "I was scared." "Because you helped her?" "No," he said. "Because I let myself be seen. And I'm not sure the world's ready for that." Autumn picked up her pencil and began to sketch again. "She saw you, though." He nodded. "She said I reminded her she never lost her dignity." Autumn didn't look up. "And what did she remind you?" Darius's voice was soft. "That I never stopped being more than what this uniform says." She drew another line, then whispered, "That's the part one don't get." "What part?" "You help people. You speak nice. You make things better. But they still treat you like you're less." He didn't answer. He couldn't. After a pause, she asked, "Are they going to fire you?" His chest tightened. "I don't know." She kept drawing. "Would that be bad?" He smiled sadly. "It wouldn't be great." Autumn set her pencil down and slid the sketchpad across the table. He looked at it. It was a drawing of him again, not cleaning, not serving, but standing tall, arms at his sides, with words floating around him like petals. "In Japanese." She pointed. "I copied the ones from your book. The one you read at night sometimes." He looked closer. "Silence. Respect. Truth. Strength. She said those words to you, right?" Autumn asked. Darius blinked. "How did you?" "I read lips," she said. "Sometimes. When I want to understand." He stared at the paper. "You shouldn't have to." She shrugged. "But I want to." Then, quieter, "I don't like when people decide I'm small just because I don't talk much." Darius felt the breath leave his body. Not dramatically. Just gone. He reached across the table, covered her hand with his. "You're not small," he said. "You're the biggest thing I've ever believed in." Autumn didn't smile. But she didn't look away either. That was her way of saying she heard him. After a minute, she pulled her hand back and went to her backpack. Fished out a small folded piece of paper. "What's that?" he asked. "A letter I never gave you," she said, sliding it across. He opened it. "Dear Dad, I know you worry when I'm quiet, but I hear everything. I see how tired your hands are. How you stand straighter when no one's watching. I know you think I'm still broken, but I'm not. I'm just waiting for the right words. The ones that feel safe. And if I never find them, That's okay. Because you already speak enough love for both of us. Love, Autumn. Darius swallowed. He folded the paper carefully. Too carefully. Like it might fall apart if he breathed too hard. Then he stood, walked around the table and wrapped her in a hug. She didn't hug back right away. But then her fingers clutched his sleeve. I want to meet her, she whispered. Who? The woman you spoke tea with. He smiled. Spoke tea? That's what you do, isn't it? Yeah, he said. I guess it is. She pulled back. Will she come here? I don't know. Can we go there? Maybe. Autumn nodded. Then if you do get fired. He looked at her. You'll still be my favorite person, she said. He laughed, short and hoarse. That might be the best severance package I ever get. She grinned. And in that moment, under soft kitchen lights, with tea gone cold and sketches still drying, Darius Cole didn't feel afraid of tomorrow. Because the truth had already been spoken. And not a single word had been wasted. It was just past 9 a.m. when Darius found the envelope taped to the janitorial time clock. Unlike the last one, this wasn't cold and corporate. This one was handwritten. Heavy cream paper. His name in calligraphy ink. He pulled it down slowly, careful not to tear it. Inside was a single card. No hotel branding. No signatures. Just 6 words. Come to the koi garden. Alone. No time. No explanation. But he knew. He left the mop bucket in the supply closet, washed his hands twice in the back hallway sink, and took the long corridor through the east wing. No one stopped him this time. No curious stares. No whispers. The door to the koi garden opened soundlessly. She was already there. Standing near the edge of the small pond, one hand resting lightly on the carved stone railing, her other tucked into the folds of her long navy blue coat. He stepped closer. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said without turning. You didn't say when, he replied. She smiled at the water. I trusted your sense of timing. They stood there, side by side, watching the koi drift lazily beneath the surface. The orange and white patterns shimmered like soft fire beneath the glassy water. I used to come here with my father, she said quietly. When I was a child. Before business replaced memory. Darius said nothing. I wanted to offer you something, she continued, but not with handlers or PR staff around. Not in a lobby. Not in a boardroom. He turned slightly to face her. Then where? Here, she said. Where silence is respected. She finally looked at him. Darius, she said, I want you to join me. He blinked. As what? As someone I can trust, she replied. Not just in translation. In integrity. He folded his arms. You already have translators. And executives. I don't need more voices, she said. I need someone who understands silence. Nuance. Who isn't trying to impress me. Someone who can remind me when the room is full of noise, but no truth. He shook his head slowly. I'm just a janitor. You're a man who bowed before speaking, she said. And the world noticed. Darius looked back at the water. You don't even know what I've been through. I don't need your past resume, she said. I saw your present posture. He exhaled. Look, he said, this is all a lot. I've got a daughter. She's everything. She's been through enough change already. Then we make it work, Yukiko said immediately. Flexible hours. Remote meetings. Transitional period. You name the terms. He paused. You'd let me choose how I work? Yes, she said. Because I'm not hiring a title. I'm inviting a perspective. Darius chuckled under his breath. You talk like no CEO I've ever mopped under. Then perhaps it's time more CEOs start listening to janitors. He stared at her. What's the catch? There isn't one. There always is. She met his gaze. The catch is you'll no longer be invisible. And that can be frightening. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, why me? Because you changed a room without raising your voice, she said. You changed me. That stopped him. He looked away, blinking hard. She gave him a moment. Then, I'll be in town another week. Take your time. But don't wait forever. Some doors don't stay open long. He nodded. She bowed, not as a CEO, not as a symbol, but as a woman giving respect. Then she turned and walked toward the garden gate. Before she disappeared, she called back without turning. And Darius? Yeah. Tell Autumn thank you for the drawing. It's in my briefcase now. Darius froze. How did you? I have good eyes, she said. And then she was gone. Back in the staff locker room, Darius sat on the bench for a long time, staring at the same drawing Autumn had made, now only existing as a memory on his phone. He didn't know what scared him more, the offer or the truth that deep down he wanted it. Not for the money, not for the praise, but for the first time in years, someone wasn't offering him a way out. They were offering him a way forward. He thought of Autumn, of her silent strength, of the letters she'd written, of the way she saw him, not for what he'd lost, but for what he carried. And in that moment, something inside Darius Cole shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just real and irreversible. The boardroom smelled of power, not the perfume kind, not fresh flowers or coffee in crystal decanters. No, this was the stale kind. Recycled air, too much leather, too little sunlight. The kind that made truths shrink. 12 men and women in tailored suits sat around a curved obsidian table, and at its head, Gregory Stanton, chairman of the Global Properties Board. His silver cufflinks gleamed as he folded his hands, voice smooth and predatory. So let me understand this correctly, Stanton said. A janitor speaks Japanese to one of our biggest investors. Goes viral. Our PR team panics. The GM loses control of the narrative. And now, he looked around the table. Now, Ms. Watanabe wants to offer this man a position? The word came out like something between disbelief and contempt. Veronica Kent, seated 2 chairs down, cleared her throat. We believe Ms. Watanabe sees value in his cultural awareness. But I assure you, there's been no formal contract signed. She's hosting him privately in the koi garden, another board member muttered. That's already too much access. Let's not forget, Stanton added, she controls nearly 10% of our global capital investment, which means her influence is not just symbolic. It's structural. The pause. Then, and what is the janitor's name again? Darius Cole, Veronica said. Stanton raised an eyebrow. Any credentials? None on record. He's been with the Sterling Grand for 6 years. Prior military. Speaks fluent Japanese. No complaints, no incidents, until now. Stanton smiled thinly. Pious. The noble disruptor. A few chuckles rolled across the room. Then a woman at the far end of the table, Margaret Chu, VP of Ethics and Community Engagement, leaned forward. I watched the footage, she said. That disruptor diffused a potential PR disaster. The guest was being mishandled, and none of our executives moved. He did. With respect. In her native language. That's not insubordination. That's leadership. Stanton looked at her coolly. You think leadership comes with a mop? I think leadership shows up where dignity is missing, she said. Veronica interjected. Regardless, this has implications. If we allow janitorial staff to bypass role protocols and engage with VIPs, we set a precedent. Indeed, Stanton agreed. And precedence becomes policy. He steepled his fingers. Here's what I propose, he said. We allow Ms. Watanabe her symbolic gesture. Let her believe she's choosing a man of honor. Meanwhile, we slow walk any actual offer. Paperwork gets lost. HR drags their feet. By the time she leaves the country, the matter quietly dissolves. And Mr. Cole? Someone asked. Stanton smirked. Give him a commendation. Quietly. Frame it as appreciation, not elevation. Remind him of his value within the structure. Margaret Chu's jaw tensed. You mean remind him to stay in his place? Stanton's gaze flicked toward her. I mean remind him of our process. The room buzzed with low murmurs. No one openly agreed, but no one objected either. Power didn't need consensus. It just needed silence. Downstairs, Darius was back in uniform. He walked the back corridor with his cart, as always. Only now, every step felt heavier. He'd spent the morning rereading Yukiko's note. Every word seemed honest. But now, doubts crept in like mold behind drywall. He turned the corner and found Angela from HR waiting by the staff elevators. "Hey," she said gently. "Let me guess," he muttered. "Policy meeting?" She nodded. "You're being moved off the lobby rotation. Temporarily." He sighed. "Because of the memo?" She hesitated. "They say it's to protect you." He looked at her. "From what?" Angela didn't answer. Just handed him a new schedule. Maintenance shifts. Back stairwells. Night detail. Darius looked at the paper for a long time. This was their compromise? "No," she said quietly. "This was their way of making you invisible again." He folded the schedule and slid it into his back pocket. "Thank you for being honest," he said. "I'm sorry it's not more." "It is," he said, "because now I know where I stand." That evening, Yukiko called him. Not through a secretary. Not through a formal channel. She called his cell directly. "I heard," she said. "About the schedule? About the board." He paused. "So the offer's off?" "No," she said. "The offer's being blocked." He waited. "I want you to meet someone," she said. "Someone who doesn't care about suits or walls or titles." "Who?" "My brother," she said. "He runs our humanitarian division. I think he'll understand what the board refuses to see." Darius exhaled. "And if he doesn't?" "Then we'll build something new," she said. "But not without you." For the first time in days, he didn't feel like a pawn. He felt like a partner. The cafe was nothing like Darius expected. Not high-rise or marble-floored, no linen napkins or candlelit booths. Just wood. Warm, worn wood. A place that smelled like roasted beans and rain on stone. Jazz played low in the background, unhurried. Darius checked his watch again. 9:58 a.m. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door chimed. A man entered, younger than Yukiko by a few years. No suit. Just a gray wool sweater and black jeans, sleeves pushed up to the elbows. His hair was tied in a low knot, and a thin scar crossed his left hand like a story never told. He spotted Darius immediately. "You're early," the man said in fluent English, then bowed. "Good." Darius stood and bowed, a little unsure of how formal to be. "Thank you for meeting me, Mr. Watanabe." The man waved a hand. "Please, call me Kenji." They sat. No assistants. No documents. Just 2 cups of green tea, brought silently by a server who nodded once and vanished. For a moment, neither man spoke. Darius glanced at the folded napkin, then finally said, "Your sister mentioned your division. Humanitarian affairs." Kenji nodded. "I work with communities rebuilding after loss. War zones. Natural disasters. Places where silence is survival, not preference." That last word struck Darius in the chest. Kenji studied him. "She told me what happened at the hotel. And more importantly, what you did not do." Darius met his eyes. "What do you mean?" "You didn't perform. You didn't self-promote. You didn't try to prove you belonged. You simply were fluent. Present." Darius said nothing. Kenji leaned forward. "You reminded her that dignity doesn't announce itself. It enters quietly and shifts the room." Darius folded his hands. "That wasn't my plan." "I know," Kenji said. "That's why it mattered." The pause. Then Kenji reached into a canvas satchel beside him and pulled out a black folder. Inside, a simple proposal. No logos. No boilerplate. At the top, Community Liaison Consultant, Pacific Partnerships Program. Darius blinked. "You want me to work with you?" he asked. Kenji nodded. "Advisory at first. Low visibility, but meaningful. We're launching a cultural training initiative. We need someone who understands duality, who can speak 2 languages not just fluently, but respectfully. I'm not certified in anything. You're fluent in things most men ignore." Darius looked at the paper again. Flexible hours. Remote options. Childcare stipend. Built-in leave time. And more than that, it wasn't a trap. It was He shook his head slowly. You don't even know me. Kenji smiled. But I know the kind of silence you carry. Darius glanced away, jaw tightening. You don't have to decide now, Kenji said gently. But I'm leaving for Okinawa in 3 weeks. If you come with me, we start something honest. If you don't, we'll still respect whatever road you take. Darius looked back at him. What if I fail? He asked quietly. Kenji finished his tea. Set the cup down. Then you fail standing tall. That night, Darius lay on the couch, not asleep, not awake. The television was off. The apartment dim. Only the soft buzz of the refrigerator filled the silence. Autumn came out of her room holding a blanket. You okay? She asked. He sat up. Couldn't sleep. She draped the blanket over him and sat beside him, pulling her legs up to her chest. Did something happen? Someone made me an offer, he said. Her head tilted. A good one. He nodded. But big. Scary. Real. She hugged her knees tighter. Is it far away? Maybe. Is it dangerous? No, he said. But it would mean starting over. Autumn looked at him a long time. Then, you're allowed to want more, Dad. He blinked. You've always made things work for me, she said. Maybe now you get to make something work for you. The words hit harder than any memo ever could. He reached out, pulled her into his side. I don't know what the right move is yet, he whispered. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. She just stayed there. And that silence, for once, didn't ask anything of him. It just held space. Autumn stood in the doorway of her school library, her fingers clenching the straps of her backpack. It wasn't noisy inside. It rarely was. But that day, the silence pressed in a little heavier. The kids at her table were laughing, pointing at a video on someone's phone. A video she knew. Her dad. Bowing. Pouring tea. Whispers. Smirks. Is that your janitor, Dad? Someone asked. Autumn didn't answer. She turned and walked back out before anyone saw her face twist. By the time she got to the courtyard, she was shaking. Not from shame, but from something she didn't have a name for yet. That night, she didn't eat much dinner. Darius noticed, but didn't push. They sat on the couch, a rerun playing low in the background. She traced invisible lines into her jeans, her mind elsewhere. Finally, she spoke. Dad. Yeah. If we left, like really left, would it mean everything we did here was a waste? He blinked. No. Why would you think that? Because it feels like quitting. He paused. Then said, leaving doesn't mean quitting. It means choosing. Autumn nodded slowly. Kenji's job, would you take it if it was just you? Darius hesitated. Probably yeah. She looked down. Then we should go. He studied her. Are you sure? She didn't answer at first. Then, I'm tired of shrinking to fit other people's comfort. At school, I'm quiet, so they think I'm weak. You mop floors so they think you're less. But when they needed peace, you gave it to them. And they still want to bury that. Darius felt his throat tighten. Autumn reached into her backpack and pulled out a drawing. A new one. It showed a globe, with 2 hands on opposite sides reaching toward each other. One hand held a broom. The other, a briefcase. At the center of the world, a single teacup. You said you didn't know the right move, she whispered. So I made one. Darius took the paper, speechless. Smiled, small but firm. I'm ready, Dad. If you are. The next morning, Darius called Kenji. I'm in, he said. Kenji didn't sound surprised. Good. We leave in 10 days. 10. There's a school there for Autumn, Kenji said. Specialized. Quiet friendly. We already started the enrollment paperwork. Darius sat down. You move fast. We don't delay purpose, Kenji said. 2 days later, the Sterling Grand held a staff breakfast. Veronica Kent stood at the podium, smiling thinly, delivering a speech about excellence in unexpected places. Her voice was syrupy. And today, she said, we honor Mr. Cole not only for his years of service, but for a recent cultural contribution. Polite applause. A framed certificate. No mention of the tea. No mention of the video. No mention of the attempt to silence him afterward. Darius took the mic briefly. "Thank you," he said simply. "It's been an honor to clean what others walk over." The silence after was deafening. That night, he packed the last of his uniforms into a box marked "Donate." Autumn was labeling books with masking tape and Sharpie. On one she wrote, "For someone who needs a quiet hero." Darius sat beside her, holding her last drawing in his hands. "You know," he said, "I used to think mopping floors was the only job I'd ever do. And now I think it was the only job that taught me enough to be ready for what's next." Autumn grinned. "That sounds like something someone in a book would say." He chuckled. "Maybe I'm finally becoming interesting." She laughed, a full laugh. Not a small one. Not a whisper. And Darius realized it was the first time he'd heard it in months. The airport was louder than Autumn liked. Announcements blared overhead in 2 languages. Rolling suitcases bumped against seats. A child cried somewhere near gate 12. But through it all, she held her dad's hand, tighter than usual. Darius looked down at her. "You okay, sweetheart?" Autumn nodded once. "Yeah. Just thinking." He smiled gently. "About what?" She hesitated. Then said, "What if they don't understand me there either?" Darius knelt in front of her, blocking out the crowd. "They might not, at first. But you're not hard to understand, Autumn. You're honest. You see things. You make quiet feel safe." She looked at him. "Like you." "Exactly like me," he said. "Only better." She exhaled slowly. "Okay." The final boarding call echoed across the terminal. Kenji appeared from the crowd, a slim black backpack over his shoulder. "Ready?" he asked in his calm voice. Darius stood and nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be." Autumn pulled her hoodie up. Not out of fear. Just to feel a little smaller until she was ready to take up space again. As they walked toward the gate, a woman from a nearby coffee shop called out softly, "Excuse me, Mr. Cole?" Darius turned. The woman stepped forward, holding out a small envelope. "This came for you an hour ago. Courier. Said it was urgent." He opened it carefully. Inside, a single typed note. "Sometimes the janitor sees the whole building more clearly than the board ever will. Go build something they can't silence. MC." Darius smiled faintly. "Margaret Chu." "Of course." He tucked the note into his breast pocket. The flight was long. Autumn slept curled against his side for most of it, her sketchbook open in her lap. Darius stared out the window, the curve of the Pacific endless and blue beneath them. Kenji was across the aisle, headphones in, watching a documentary on post-tsunami reconstruction. Every so often he'd glance over and nod. No words. Just acknowledgement. Darius appreciated that. Silence with men like Kenji wasn't awkward. It was mutual space. The kind of trust. They landed at Naha Airport just before dusk. The humidity hit first, thick, warm, familiar in a way that reminded Darius of Georgia summers. Autumn clung to his arm, her eyes scanning the new world around them. Signs in kanji. Soft yellow light. Laughter from families greeting each other. No one looked twice at them. No one stared. Outside, a black car waited. Kenji led them in without ceremony. No speeches. No welcome banners. Just a folded map and a sentence. "Home is an hour inland." They drove past green hills, narrow streets, children on bicycles. Darius watched it all like a man blinking awake. "This is the town where my mother grew up," Kenji said quietly. "She used to say it was the only place where silence didn't mean absence. It meant presence." Darius didn't reply. But those words soaked into him. Autumn had her face pressed to the glass, her fingers tracing the outline of distant lanterns hanging from trees. Their temporary home was simple. A small traditional house with sliding paper doors and a garden that hummed with cicadas. A guest futon had already been prepared. A modest kitchen. Books in both languages. Autumn wandered into the garden before anyone said a word. She stood beside the stone basin, dipping her fingers into the water. When Darius joined her, she didn't turn around. "I think I like it here," she whispered. He looked at her. "Even without saying much?" he asked. "Especially without saying much," she said. It feels like I don't have to explain myself to the air. He left, low and warm. Kenji stepped out from the doorway, hands in his pockets. There's a community event tomorrow. Well, but they'll ask who you are. Darius nodded. I'll be ready. Kenji smiled. You already are. That night, Darius sat in the courtyard after Autumn went to sleep. He looked up at the stars, fewer than back home, but somehow closer. He pulled out Margaret's note again. Read it twice. Then, from his pocket, he unfolded Autumn's drawing. The globe, the hands, the teacup. He placed both notes side by side. 2 women. 1 old world. 1 new. And in between, the quiet steps of a man who'd never asked to be seen, only never wanted to be erased. He whispered aloud, to no one in particular. Tomorrow, we start. Not loud. Not dramatic. But true. The village community hall was simple, bamboo floors, wide windows, fans overhead. People sat in circles on straw mats. Children played with paper lanterns. Elders poured tea slowly, reverently, like it was a ritual more sacred than words. Darius stood near the back, holding a small cup with both hands, watching. Kenji approached. They'd like to hear from you. Darius blinked. Me? You're not a stranger anymore, Kenji said. You're part of the bridge we're building. Darius looked down at his clothes. Just a loose shirt and slacks. No titles. No medals. What do I say? He asked. Kenji's smile was faint but real. The truth. In your language or theirs. Either will be understood. They called him forward near sunset. A small platform. No microphone. Just the quiet of people who came to listen. Darius stepped up, heart pounding harder than it had during any military training. He looked at the room. Some eyes curious. Others kind. And one, Autumn's, steady. He cleared his throat. My name is Darius Cole, he began, voice low. I used to think being quiet meant being unseen. That the world only listened to the loudest people in the room. He paused. But silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the only language that tells the truth. A few elders nodded. In my country, I was a janitor. That means I cleaned what others walked on. It meant knowing every hallway, every crack in the wall, even if no one knew my name. He took a breath. But one day, a guest, a woman with dignity, came to my building. She was disrespected by people who only saw her title, not her soul. A long silence. I spoke to her in the only language I knew she would understand. And somehow, the whole world listened. People were still now. Every child. Every elder. He continued. Now I'm here not to be praised, but to help build something quieter and stronger. A space where silence is honored. Where bridges aren't built with money or noise, but with trust. He bowed deeply, then added in slow, careful Japanese. Even if my voice is small, my heart is with you. The room stayed silent for a breath. Then a child began clapping. Then another. And soon, the room was full of it. Not thunderous applause, but respectful, steady acknowledgement. Not a performance. A welcome. Later that evening, Darius and Autumn walked through the village streets under glowing paper lanterns. Autumn reached for his hand. You didn't even look nervous, she said. He smiled. I was terrified. She laughed. Then, softly, you made silence feel brave. He squeezed her hand. You made it possible, he said. They passed a tea stall. An old woman offered Autumn a small wooden pin, shaped like a teacup. Autumn bowed, clutching it to her chest. In that moment, the past, the mop, the whispers, the boardroom scorn, fell away. What remained was this. A man who bowed before he spoke. A girl who refused to be invisible. And a future shaped not by volume, but by presence. 6 months later, a new initiative launched across both nations. The Still Bridges program. Darius became its first community integrity liaison. No plaque. No viral videos. Just quiet rooms, translated hearts, and change that whispered louder than any speech. And somewhere, in a boardroom across the ocean, someone finally asked, why didn't we see it sooner? But the truth was, he was always there. Just no one had listened until he spoke. In silence,